a certified financial planner with LA Wealth Management. That's not really our forte, but you can go and use IRA or qualified money to access your retirement account to buy properties. That's kind of complicated. There's a lot of rules, but it can be done. You could also find someone, right, Nick? You mentioned earlier it's a team sport. So if you're, let's say, somebody who's hungry and has some good skill set and is willing to put in the sweat equity, you could conceivably find that doctor you spoke about who would like to invest in real estate but might not have a lot of time, but they might be able to bring the funding in one way or another, and you could pair up. You must see a lot of that kind of partnership work, no?
I do, yeah, and that type of a partnership is referred to, if you do it with multiple people and you bring on a number of investors, is what's referred to as a syndication deal. So it's where you as an investor would go out and you would find, like you're saying, Chris, doctors, lawyers, perhaps, and other high net worth individuals, or even just people who had a few thousand or maybe more than that they were willing to invest and to put into your deal. And then you would pool together their resources, allow them each to have an equity stake in your deal, and you would be in charge of putting in that sweat equity, as you mentioned, and running the deal and managing it for them. That would be one way. And I want to throw in, too, another type of financing arrangement you might do, which is a little bit more basic than some of the things we've been talking about, which is simply seller financing.
Oh, yeah, that's a great example.
Owner financing, I guess, would be
yes.
the better way, since you're the seller, or since you're the buyer, rather. Owner financing, where you want, for example, to acquire an apartment building, and you don't have the capital. Maybe you can get some loans and some financing to help you, but you're still not quite there. So you're able to negotiate terms with the person you're buying it from that, in exchange for working out an arrangement with you, they'll give you a reduced amount, but they're also earning cash flow each month from the sale and from the money you're providing them. So you can work out your own creative arrangement with them. Not everyone who's selling is going to be able to do that. They're not going to want to do that. But as I've heard from many of the people on my show and many of the people I've worked with on the book side, helping them put together their books, seller financing is one of those things that you don't know until you ask. And most investors, unfortunately, never think to ask.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I've done deals where I have acquired property and the seller and the owner has held the mortgage or held the paper for me, and I have also sold. In one instance, I sold the property and I held the note, and then they paid me back. And I was with Nick, a very good client of mine in Florida a week or two ago, and they had sold a home, and they've been holding the mortgage for a very long time, and they love it. And we talked about this, and one of the points that my client Marilyn, her husband Dick, made was that, real estate agents tend to hate those deals. Because I'm not sure why, but you're right. If you learn about it and you ask, and in the right situations, it could work out really, really well for both parties. I know in my case, when I was on either side, in both instances, it worked out great for everybody involved. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, that can be a really great way for you as well, if you have a property. Once you get it under contract, once you buy it, to actually get passive income from it without having the hassle of renters. If
Sure.
you are able to structure one of those agreements with the person who's buying it from you, then you would be receiving a cash flow each month, but you're not having to as well go and worry about toilets, tenants, and termites, and all those other wonderful headaches that come with a rental property.
Now, when we were talking offline before, one of the things that we touched on was, how much money you're going to throw at this endeavor, especially starting out, right? Because you do need to be careful. And you referenced, I don't even know, I'll put you on the spot. You referenced a very, very funny movie from years ago. Do you remember what movie you referenced?
Yeah, it was The Money Pit with,
Yeah.
I believe it was Tom Hanks and that
That's right.
crazy rehab project that they did.
Yeah, very funny movie. Not so funny if you're a real estate investor, but something close to home. But a classic movie. I think Shelley Long played Tom Hanks' wife in the movie. But how would you speak to that in terms of how to fund the purchase? How do you guard against ending into a money pit situation where things could kind of spiral out of control? There is risk in investing in any forms of these real estate, so you do need to be smart about it. Any guidelines you could give on preventing it from getting a little out of control with the budget and the money?
Well, one of the things that I think is always good to keep in mind, and this is related to the specific area of raising capital, is that there will nearly always be things that you didn't anticipate. So if you are going into a project with money that you've raised from other people, you should always ask for more than you think you need, just so that if one of these money pit situations does develop,
Sure.
You don't have to then go back to your investors with your hand outstretched asking for more. Now, in terms of your question, though, more specifically, Chris, how can you guard against these type of money pit situations? One of the things I think that is going to help right off the bat is to properly vet your contractors. So if you are working with people and having them do the handiwork in the project, really make sure that you vet them ahead of time and get to know how they work and their styles. Are they the types of people, for example, who like to go overboard on buying doors and various aspects of various equipment they're going to be bringing to the property, things that they're going to install?
Right.
Or are they the people who like to cut corners? Because that could also harm you. If they buy shoddy materials that break in the middle of a job, that's going to drain more money for the project. So make sure that you vet your contractors and really know who you're working with.
Fair enough. That's good. And actually, I think that's good advice. If it's not real estate investment and you have somebody coming in to do work in your place of business or in your home, how many stories have we all heard about people getting bamboozled and either having their money stolen or really shoddy treatment or getting a quote only to find out the real bill is way higher? I think that's good universal advice you gave. Before we switch gears, last point on someone who's looking to start investing, what should they consider? What about the end game in terms of what do they want to get out of it? Do they want to have passive income? Do they want to just buy and sell the property? How do you factor in what your end game is as part of this strategy of getting involved in real estate?
Well, you look at, as you were saying, what they want to be earning first and foremost. If you want passive income, then you need to look at rental properties, because rental properties of any form, whether that's traditional apartments or even houses that you're renting out or something like self-storage where the tenants are paying you a fee every month to store their things there, that's going to be paying you passive income. Versus if you're looking for more of a long-term lump sum, then real estate that appreciates, which could be sold off in the future, that might be more to your liking.
Very good. Good. So we talked about how to fund the purchase, and I'm curious about this because my thoughts on this subject have evolved quite a bit. I'm 48 now, and I've been a financial planner for 26 years, and I've been involved in a number of different sideline business opportunities over the years, including real estate investing. So I know this is a long wind-up, but my thoughts on debt have really changed and evolved over time. What are your views on using debt to buy properties? I know we touched on it in a moment, but what do you think about that?
Well, I think that in real estate, debt is certainly one of the most powerful things that you can use to acquire properties, but you have to be educated and you cannot rush into it at all. In terms of what you could use, there are some fantastic instruments out there. One of the ones that commonly comes up, and I hope this doesn't go too much over your listeners' heads and their understandings of it, but would be what's called an FHA loan. And that allows people, particularly now younger people on the millennial side, to get in to their first, say, 4-unit, first quad, or the first triplex, and begin to invest in multifamily real estate at a smaller level through what's called a house hack, which is basically where you live in one of the units in the property, and then you rent out the other 3. And the FHA loan will help you to do that because it's for purchasing your primary residence. So if the
Okay.
multifamily complex is your primary residence, you can use the loan for that. So that would be an example of debt being used positively.
No, that's perfect. And not to talk too much about me, I mean, hopefully I don't come across as an egomaniac, but that's actually how I got started. Soon after college, starting my career, I bought a condo, not a quad or a duplex, but I bought a condo, a 2-bedroom condo, and I rented out the other bedroom. But it was an awesome deal. I rented it out to my brother for a while. I rented it out to my best friend from high school for a while. I rented it out to another good friend of mine for a while, and they paid me rent, offsetting the mortgage. Plus, this is not exactly a real estate investment comment, but these are my friends. We hang out, we go, to restaurants together, drinking together, go meet people together. We'd watch football on Sundays. It was fantastic. And then that's where I lived with my wife when we first got married. And then when we were ready to buy our first home, we moved to the first home, and then I rented the condo out completely. And when I think about the entry point to doing that, it wasn't very costly. And like you said, I went through traditional financing and got a first-time home buyer mortgage because I was occupying the property. It's a great way to get started, especially if you're younger, looking to get into real estate investing and also home ownership in general. Great idea.
Well, and Chris, what I also like about your example that you just mentioned is that it illustrates the value of scaling up, not trying to go right out the gate charging at a 30-unit apartment complex, or
Right.
not trying to just suddenly take down all these houses one after another. Really working your way up gradually and slowly as it makes sense for you and your lifestyle.
Yeah, and tying it back to the money pit example, I was able to handle the cost of that condo on my own, so that on occasion, my friend might move out, they might move in with their girlfriend or get married, and whatever the case is, and if that bedroom was empty, I was fine. It was preferable if I had a tenant in there or one of my friends in there, but it wasn't going to destroy me or cause harm to me if it wasn't. So that was a good combination. So let me ask you this, because you've interviewed and connected with lots of real estate investors. I think that comes across very clearly to my listeners. But what I want to know is, are there any traits and characteristics that you find in common with successful real estate investors that you've crossed paths with?
I think that one of the traits that I consistently see is a desire to improve themselves. And one of the reasons I say that is that at the end of nearly each episode that I do, I'll ask my guests about what sort of books they read. And almost always, the guest is able to name quite a few books in the areas particularly of self-development and personal improvement. And what I think is interesting about that is that it shows that they are continual learners and that they're really not satisfied with their current selves and always looking to improve.
Very good. I know I have an appetite for that type of reading, so that's very good. On the show, my show, often towards the back end, I just want to ask a little bit about your background, and can you share with us, did you grow up in an affluent household? What kind of household did you grow up in?
No, certainly not affluent. Definitely not, nothing like the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, or any of those families of old.
You're not a trust fund baby?
Unfortunately or fortunately not.
And what did you learn about money growing up?
That's an interesting question. I learned, of course, that money is important, which I think many of your listeners probably receive the same advice, but
Sure.
that money is the sort of thing that you need to constantly be working for. And I'm certainly no one by any means to discount the value of hard work. I think that's very, very important. But I think that in the area of money, it is important to realize, too, that once you put in a certain amount of work and move in a certain direction or directions, the money should begin to work for you. And that's something that, unfortunately, I didn't get too much guidance on.
And so growing up like you did, and I think did you come up or do you have any money rules that provide a blueprint for you as you think about what you exchange your time for?